Pastor's Corner Devotional. Today is Canada Day, so happy Canada Day to you. And we're excited because, we live in such a great country. It's not perfect, but we know that there are wonderful things about it. So I just want to encourage you today to take a moment to celebrate the freedoms that we enjoy, to pray for our leaders, to pray for our Prime Minister, to pray for our premiers and our mayors in our various cities. If you're joining us, we're in a devotional series looking at this word justice, what righteousness and justice, what that means for God and what that means for us. So if you have a Bible, I just want to read a couple passages for you this morning as we think through some more of this thing called righteousness and justice. Jeremiah 9:24 says this, "But let the one who boasts boast about this, that they have the understanding to know me, that I am the Lord who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For in these I delight, declares the Lord." Genesis 18, verse 18 and 19, it's the call of Abraham. "And Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him. For I have chosen him so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him." And that's from Genesis. So as you look at these two devotional passages this morning, again, they just really lean into the idea of righteousness and justice. Again, we talked about righteousness being this word zedekah or zedek, and the idea is to be able to treat people rightly, to treat people as those who are created in the image of God. The second word for justice there is mishpat, and there's two elements to it. One is what we call a retributive justice, where there are consequences for things that we do wrong. So for example, if I stole a loaf of bread, there's consequences. I can be fined, I can be put in prison. There's something that's going to happen to make it right. But there's a restorative justice piece to it as well, where you come alongside those who are vulnerable, you come alongside those who are being oppressed, and you lift them up, you hear their voices, and you deal with the systems and structures that continue their oppression, and you try to make changes to them. And there's a restoration that happens. And so that's the idea of restorative justice. Here with Jeremiah, just one of the simple things is that if we want to know about God, if we want to boast about our knowledge of God, one of the very key things that God says that's important to him is kindness, but also justice and righteousness. One of the things that I think about with that is we tend to boast about things in terms of, when we talk about our children, maybe we boast about how good they are academically or how athletic they are about something. It's usually a characteristic about our child that we tell other people. Well, if we're going to boast about God, we have to know his characteristics. And one of the key characteristics is his love for righteousness and his love for justice. And so he says, if you're going to boast about me, talk about these things. So if we're the church and if we're people who are Jesus people, we need to be talking about the things that God is passionate about. And he's passionate about righteousness. He's passionate about justice. And so these are some things that he says there in Jeremiah. The passage in Genesis it reminds me of just Abraham's calling. Abraham's calling was to leave his country and to follow God into the unknown. And as he continues, he gets his name changed from Abram to Abraham. And God reiterates again for him his call to just continue to follow him. And God would bless him. God would bless him into this great nation. And it's through that nation that the entire world would be blessed. And we see that in the culmination of Jesus. But in this simple call in Genesis, we're reminded of what God is calling Abraham to do. He says, keep the way of the Lord by doing right and just, by doing what is right and just. In doing so, you're keeping the way of the Lord. Oftentimes we ask, what is God's will for my life, right? And we tend to look for the little nitty-gritty things like, what am I supposed to do for work? Who am I supposed to marry? Am I supposed to go left or am I supposed to go right? And God says, again, one of the key things about if you want to keep his commandments, keep what God wants at the forefront, he says, do the things that are right and the things that are just. Do the things that treat people as people created in the image of God, and do the things that are just. Deal with systems of oppression, deal with the vulnerable, deal with people who don't have a voice. And so that's, again, God's passion. So today, for us, Jesus people, as I want you to consider what it means for us to really boast about God and to keep God's commands. And again, those two very simple principles are at the forefront of what he is all about. He is all about righteousness and he's all about justice. And those are very important factors for God. So I hope that challenges you and I hope that encourages you today. So righteousness and justice, what does that mean? Let's keep looking. Let's keep exploring. Tune in next week. Love and peace.